Shirupam sagrajatam sagana raganatan vitam tam sajivam sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prajabhanu Sade Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Shivajari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare ये अगरबत्ती कमरे में रख दो ये इस कमरे में हरे नाम एव केवलम कोलौ नस्ति विकतिरन्यता माधुरम मधुरेभ्योऽपि मंगलेभ्योऽपि मंगलम पावनं पावनेभ्योऽपि हरे नाम एव केवलम जयति जयति नामानन्दरूपं मुरारे विरमिरनिजधर्म ध्याना पुजार्यतं कथमपि सकृदातं मुक्तिनं प्रणिनं यत् परममृतम् एकनं जीवनं भूषणं मे Reading from Jaiva Dharma. Chapter 10. Nitya Dharma and History. So some scholars had come to Golbum Dvip and discussing with Vaishnav Das. So the Vaishnavas, sometimes they are not properly respected by Smata Brahmanas. And they think that they are sentimentalists. But the true Vaishnavas are the greatest scholars. But they are most humble. So, and actually the Vedic literatures are very vast. And no one can know all the Shastras, that's not possible. But so we should try to know the essence. So the Acharya, they have studied the essential scriptures and then they are presented to the general devotees. So they may also understand the essence. So the Nyaya Ratna, he was a Smarta Brahmana, so he's asking why the Vaishnavas are opposing killing of animals in sacrifice. Because in some places it is, or it appears to be supported. Vaishnav das. It is not the intention of Shastra that animals should be killed. The Vedas declare ma himsyat sarvani bhutani. One should not commit violence to any living entity. This statement forbids violence to animals. As long as human nature is strongly influenced by the mode of passion and ignorance, people will be spontaneously driven to illicit connection with the opposite sex, meeting and intoxication. Such people do not ask the Vedas to sanction their activities. The purpose of the Vedas is not to promote such activities, but rather to curb them. So the Vedic literatures, they are there to guide the conditioned souls, the common man, to make advancement in spiritual life. So spiritual instructions are there. How to advance in spiritual life. At the same time, how to be able to live properly in this world, that is also explained by following Varna Ashram, and the Niti Shastra model codes are there. Because not everyone is able to immediately and completely engage in spiritual activities. And so therefore, the scriptures are there for those who are, scriptures are there for giving the highest knowledge, the essence of the Vedic literatures, at the same time also giving knowledge or recommendations for those who are not able to accept the highest principles, but so that they may gradually be elevated. So for that purpose, the yagas have been explained also in this regard, like horse sacrifice, cow sacrifice. But that was specifically for the previous ages, but not for the age of Kali. When human beings are situated in the mode of goodness, they can naturally refrain from animal slaughter, sexual indulgence, and intoxication. Until that point, the Vedas prescribe various means to control such tendencies. For this reason, they sanction association with the opposite sex through marriage, vivas yagya, the killing of animals in sacrifice, and drinking of wine in particular ceremonies. By practicing in this way, these tendencies will gradually wane in a person, and he will eventually be able to give them up. This is the true purpose of the Vedas. They do not recommend the killing of animals. Their intention is expressed in these words of Srimad Bhagavatam. Loke vyavaya misha madhya seva nityaschudanto nahitat tachodana vivastitisteshu vivaha yagya suragrahair asha nivrittarishta. It is observed that people in this world have a natural tendency towards intoxication, meat-eating and sexual enjoyment. But Shastra cannot sanction their engagement in such activities. Therefore, special provisions have been given whereby some association with the opposite sex is permitted through marriage. Some eating of flesh is permitted through performance of sacrifice. And the drinking of wine is permitted through the ritual known as Sautramani Yagya. The purpose of such injunctions is to restrain the licentious tendencies of the general populace and to establish them in moral conduct. The intrinsic purpose of the Vedas And making such provisions is to draw people away from such activities altogether. The Vaishnava conclusion in this regard is that there is no objection if a person whose nature is ruled by passion and ignorance kills animals. However, a person who is situated in mode of goodness should not do so, because causing harm to other jivas is an animalistic propensity. Sri Narad has explained this in Srimad Bhagavatam. Ahastani sahastanam apadani chatuspadam falguni tatra mahatam jiva jivasya jivanam. Living entities without hands are prey for those with hands. Life forms without legs are food for the four legs. Small creatures are subsistence for large ones. In this way, one living entity is the means of existence for another. So in this material world, different living entities are in different forms. And so living entities in human form of life, living entities in animal species or other species, birds and insects and so on. And there's a struggle for existence for all. And in the animal kingdom, so one creature is food for another creature, as explained in this verse from the Bhagavatam. And so that is natural. So the lion, in order to survive, so he's bound to eat other smaller animals. And but it is mentioned that for the human beings, so the food is actually vegetables, fruits, grains, and then nuts, and so on, and milk. But for some who are too much in the mode of passion, so there's a concession for eating some animals, but in a restricted way. And it is mentioned usually that on new moon, on Amavasya Tithi, so on that day one may kill an animal and offer to Durga Devi. But it is mentioned also that the person who is doing that and who wants to eat the flesh, he should say in the air of the animal that now I'm eating you, and in the future you will eat me. So, if one is doing that, then one will think, well, wait 1 minute, now I'm eating this animal and he will eat me, so better not to do that. But those who are just like animals, they cannot understand. And due to the mode of passion and ignorance, due to being misguided, but those who are following the Vedic literatures, those who are God conscious, they will never cause harm to other living entities. They will avoid. And especially they will never eat meat. Of course, even somebody may say, but even the plants, they also have some life. Then maybe that is there. but they are less conscious, and also because it is material world, so and one has to sustain oneself, but we should do what is mentioned in scriptures, what is mentioned by the Lord. And so for that purpose one may take some grains and then some vegetables, and then of course fruits, and then one may offer to the Lord, and then one will be freed from the reaction of even harming species or living entities in lower species. And therefore those who are also killing animals, but according to the injunctions of the scriptures, so they are then to some extent less involved in, or they will not have to suffer so much, but still some suffering will be there. The Vedic verdict of Manusmriti is also very clear. Namamsa bhakshane doshe namadye nacham maitune pravritir esha bhutanam rivrististu mahapala. Abstinence from activities such as sexual indulgence, meat eating and intoxication yields highly beneficial results, although a human being is naturally inclined to them. So by abstaining from these sinful activities, one can advance in spiritual life. Nyayaratna, yes, but why do the Vaishnavas object to the Shraddha ceremony or the activities that are meant to repay one's debt to the forefathers? Vaishnavas, people who are intent on carrying out prescribed pious duties perform the Shraddha ceremony in accordance with the Kanda division of the Vedas. Vaishnavas have no objection to this, but Shastra declares. So Karma Kanda is there for the persons who are not yet fully engaged in devotional activities, and so they are performing activities for sanctification, but they follow the injunctions of the scriptures. So therefore the Vaishnavas understanding that these persons are not qualified to be engaged in pure devotional service, so they are following karma kanda. But they usually accept and at least the existence of the demigods, or they may accept the existence of the Lord, but because they have material desires, they worship the demigods to get some material desires, to get the material desires fulfilled, to get some material gain or sanskarification, opportunity for sanskarification. So it is mentioned in Shastra Srimad Bhagavatam. Devashipataptaninam pitrinam naking karonayam rini charajan savatmanaya sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam pariritakartam. O king, when a human being gives up the ego of independence from Bhagavan and takes full shelter of Sri Mukunda as a supreme refuge, he is released from his debts to the devas, the sages, the general living entities, family members, mankind, and to the forefathers. Such devotee no longer remains subordinate to such personalities, nor is he bound to their service. So it is mentioned in the scriptures that actually we are indebted to the devas, the demigods, the rishis, forefathers, and even others in this world. So, and there's also a mentioning in the scriptures that we have to perform this Shad ceremony for forefathers. And one may, so it is enjoined that one should worship the different demigods. And Lord Indra, because he's supplying the water, so the sun god or the moon god and so on. But if one is surrendered to Krishna, to Mukunda, to the Supreme Lord, then is released from the debts to these personalities. At the same time, a devotee, so he surrendered to the Lord, he will respect the demigods, he will respect the rishis, the saintly persons, and also his family members, and he will try to help others also. Sarva bhute hite rataha. That is the nature of a Vaishnava. So but the Vaishnavas, they do not have to follow karma kanda. And just like Mahaprabhu, he himself, Supreme Lord, but he came as a devotee to show us how to act in this world according to Varnashram, and of course being fully surrendered to Krishna. But he also went to Bodh Gaya and he offered bhog to Vishnu, and that prasad he offered to his forefathers. That is actually the way how to do Shraddha ceremony in a simple way. Understanding what is the essence, what we have to do ultimately, that is engaging in devotional service. So Mahaprabhu, when he was there in Bodh Gaya, so he offered the bhog to Vishnu and then offered that Vishnu prasad to his forefathers. So that is actually the way how to do. And then the forefathers are benefited. The Lord is pleased. They are instructed to worship Bhagavan, to offer Bhagavad Prasad to the forefathers, and to honor Bhagavad Prasad with their friends and relatives. So Mahaprabhu offered that, and he offered to his forefathers Prasad. So that is the Vaishnava way of doing. And then Kirtan is performed, some Krishna Katha is there, and friends and relatives are invited, and they are given Bhagavad Prasad. Nyayaratna. At one point does one obtain the position and eligibility to act in this way? Vaishnava does. It is the prerogative of a Vaishnava to act in this way, and one becomes eligible from the time that one awakens faith in Harikatha and Harinam. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, Tava karmani kurvita na nirvidyeta yavata matkatha savanado vashadha javam na jayate. One is obliged to engage in karma and to follow the rules and prohibitions associated with that path as long as one has not awakened detachment from fruitive activities and the results of such activities. Or as long as one has not awakened faith in hearing and chanting my Lila Katha. So, most important is to engage in devotional service. By chanting the holy names, hearing Krishna Katha, associating with the devotees, with the saintly persons, with the advanced devotees, pure devotees of the Lord. That is Nitya Dharma. At the same time, being in this world, one has to also follow Naimitika Dharma, occasional activities which are there. But even there, Krishna is in the center. That is Dharma. That one is engaged in worshipping the Lord, trying to satisfy the Lord. So, Nitya, Naimitika Dharma. So the occasional duties are there. But even there, one is worshipping the Lord, the Ishtadev, and usually Harinam Sankirtan is performed, and Krishna Katha will be there also. So unless and until one is highly advanced, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained also that unless and until one is on the stage of bhav, then one has to follow the rules and regulations of the scriptures. And one is following Vaishnav Dharma, and one is also following Varna Ashram Dharma. Nyaya Ratna. I'm delighted to hear your explanations. Seeing your scholarship and fine discrimination, my faith has now been awakened in Vaishnava Dhamma. My brother, Harihar, there's no profit in debating any further. These Vaishnavas are great teachers among Pandits. They are exceedingly expert in extracting the conclusions of all the Shastras. We may say whatever we like to preserve our occupation, but it is highly doubtful whether anyone has ever appeared in the land of Bengal or in all of India for that matter who can compare with such a renowned scholar and exalted Vaishnav as Nimai Pandit. So Nimai Pandit was very much renowned. He was well known. Of course, the devotees understood that is the Supreme Lord. But the non-devotees, they could not understand. They could not appreciate Nimai Pandit, the artistic persons, the materialistic persons. So, Nariratna, he was pleased and he saw that these Vaishnavas are great scholars. Let us go. The day is waning and it will be difficult to cross the Ganges after dark. Nyayaratna and his group of teachers departed, calling out, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Vaishnavas, they began to dance and chant Jaya Satchinandana, Jaya Satchinandana, Jaya Satchinandana Gaura Hari. Thus ends the 10th chapter of Jaiva Dharma entitled Nitya Dharma and History. Chapter 11. Nitya Dharma and idolatry. So worshipping the idols. So and there's a misunderstanding there amongst many people. So that has to be cleared. Even in the Bible it is mentioned one should not make an image of God. So, but that is to be properly understood. So when the Krishnas, they may say you're worshipping an image of God, the deities. That should not be done. But idol or image of God, so that actually many of the Christians themselves, they are making an image of God, but they're a wrong image because they don't have proper knowledge, no proper knowledge, no understanding, no proper guidance. So the deities are there, and they're actually no different from the Lord. It's not just an image, but they are no different from the Lord, the deities. And so the Christians, they are imagining something. Like God is there, is the oldest person. And he's an old man. And sometimes you can see, at least I've seen, they're showing God with a beard, long beard, and white hair, because he's an old person. He's not shaving up. So they're in the clouds, up in the clouds. But so that is a concocted idea, concocted image of God. So they don't have the proper understanding. But the deities are not different from the Lord. And then the devotees who are worshipping the Lord, then they will have the realization. And they will understand, realize that Krishna, Yacha Vigraha is not different from Krishna in Golok or in the heart or in the holy names. So that is at a perfectional stage. So deity worship is actually important, very helpful. On the western bank of the Bhagirathi, in the Koladvip district of Navadvip, there is a famous village named Kulia Paharpur. At the time of Srimad Mahaprabhu, a highly respected and influenced Vaishnava named Sri Madhav Das Chattopadhyay, also known as Chakori Chattopadhyay. So Madhav Das was a respected Vaishnava. So he lived in that village. Chakori Chattopadhyay had a son named Shilavamsi Vadanananda Thakur. But the mercy of Sri Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu, Sri Vamsi Vadanananda had tremendous power and authority. Everyone addressed him as Vamsi Vadanananda Prabhu because they regarded him as an incarnation of Krishna's flute. An incarnation of Krishna's flute.
Is the same the one who was afterwards
He was with Vishnu Priya?
Yeah, he was serving her
Mm.
towards the end.
No. I don't think so. He was a renowned, let me see. Yeah, here it is mentioned actually. He was renowned as a special recipient of Sri Vishnu Priya's mercy. Hmm. After Sri Priyaji's disappearance, Vamsi Prabhu transferred the deity whom she had worshipped from Sridham Mayapur to Kulia Paharpur, and his descendants carried out the service of this deity for some time after that. However, when his descendants obtained the mercy of Sri Janavama and moved from Kulia Paharpur to Shipat Bhaganapara, the worship of the deity was continued in Kuliagram by the Sevites from Malancha. Kuliagram is situated on the opposite side of the Ganges from Prachin, Old Navadip, and at that time included many small settlements, among which Chinadanga and few others were quite famous. Once a devotee merchant in Chinadanga arranged a special festival in the temple of Kulia Paharpur and issued invitations to many Brahmana Pandits and all the Vaishnavas within the 32 square mile circumference of Navadip. On the day of the festival, the Vaishnavas came from all directions, each accompanied by their own entourage. Sri Anantadas came from Sri Nishingapali. Gorachand Das Babaji came from Sri Mayapur. Sri Narayan Das Babaji came from Sri Bilba Pushkarini. The renowned Narahari Das came from Sri Mudadrum. Sri Paramahamsa Babaji and Sri Vaishnava Das came from Sri Godrum. And Sri Satyanandana Das came from Sri Samudragar. The Vaishnavas' foreheads were decorated with vertical tilak markings, Urdhva Pundra, indicating that their bodies were temples of Sri Hari. On their necks they wore tulsi malas and their limbs looked splendid, being stamped with the names of Sri Gaura and Nityananda. Sometimes devotees, and they have just, of course, tilak is there, tilak marking, but sometimes they have stamps with the names of Gonitai or Radha Krishna and so on, with tilak only, but no permanent stamps. There is no tradition, whereas in Sri Vaishnav Sampradaya, worshipping of Vishnu or Narayan or Sitaram, so they will have stamp made with with iron, so kind of tattoo. So then they have here the chakra and the shank, or sometimes also the conch or the lotus flower. So, but many Vaishnavas, the followers of Mahaprabhu, they are dressed in a simple way, and they have simple tilak from Gopi Chandan. On their necks, so with Tulsi Mala and their limbs look splendid, being stamped with names of Sri Gaura Nityananda. Some held Sri Namamala in their hands, And others loudly perform Sankirtan of the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. To the accompaniment of mridanga and kartals. And some danced continuously as they moved along chanting Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivajari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. In the bodies of many of the Vaishnavas who have seen the external manifestations of ecstasy, such as torrents of tears and hair standing on end. While weeping, some called out fervently, "O Gaur Kishore, when will you grant me a vision of the eternal pastimes in Sri Navadvip?" There were many groups of Vaishnavas who sang Sri Nam with the accompaniment of mridanga and other instruments as they walked. The women of Kulia, who were also bhaktas of Sri Gauranga, became astonished to see the spiritual emotions and praise the spiritual good fortune of the Vaishnavas. So these spiritual emotions are seen in the advanced devotees, but they are rarely seen. And so those persons are fortunate. Proceeding in this way, the Vaishnavas arrived at the Natya Mandir, dancing mandir, directly adjacent to the deity's altar. So in the temple, the deities are there on the altar, also sometimes known as Garbhagriha. And then Jagmohan, the place before, Natya Mandir it may be called, because devotees Natya means to dance, Nritya. So when the devotees perform kirtan, especially during Arti, then they are chanting and dancing. Other times they may sit down and they may do bhajan, chanting the holy names together, or songs glorifying the Lord, glorifying Mahaprabhu, glorifying Jagannath, or glorifying Krishna. This was where Srimad Mahaprabhu would dance and perform Sankirtan. The merchant who was sponsoring the festival greeted all of them. As a symbol of submission, he wore cloth around his neck and he fell at the Vaishnava's feet, expressing sentiments of great humility. When all the Vaishnavas were seated in the Natya Mandir, the temple Sevaj brought prasadam, flower garlands, and placed them around their necks. The poetic shlokas of Sri Chaitanya Mangal were then melodiously chanted, and upon hearing the ambrosial lila of Sri Chaitanya Dev, this Vaishnava began to manifest various types of sattvic bhav. So sattvic bhav are the transcendental moods, ecstatic symptoms of the advanced devotees. When they were thus absorbed in Premananda, the doorkeeper entered and addressed the authorities of the temple. The chief mullah of Satsaika Paragana is sitting outside the assembly hall with his associates and followers. He requests to have a discussion with some of the Vaishnava Pandits. The temple authorities in turn informed the exalted Pandit Babajis that the mullah had arrived and desired to speak with them. As soon as the Vaishnavas received this news, due to a break in the flow of transcendental ras, the mood of their assembly became overcast with dejection. Krishnadas Babaji Mahashai of Simadhya Dip inquired from the temple authorities, what is the Mullah Sahib's intention? Knowing the Mullah's purpose, they replied, the Mullah Sahib wants to discuss some spiritual matters with the Vaishnava Pandits. They added that the Mullah was the foremost amongst Muslim scholars and was highly respected by the Emperor of Delhi. Although always devoted to the promotion of his own religion, he was not in the least inimical or belligerent towards other religions. So that is a true worship of the Lord, respecting all worshippers of the Lord. He is not just concerned in regards to his religion and disrespecting others, but he is respecting all. That is actually Vaishnava behavior. So, the temple authorities humbly requested that one or two Vaishnavas Pandits should come forward and discuss the Shastra with him to display the preeminence of the sacred Vaishnava Dharma. Of course, for these debates, the Vaishnavas, they came forward or they were asked to come forward by their contemporaries, by their friends, by their followers, by their disciples. As Prabhupada also mentioned, that the devotees, even in the first canto, and Prabhupada mentioned that he wanted his disciples to become very learned, and therefore he wanted them to read his books, the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and to know the subject matter thoroughly. So, Prabhupada has also explained they should be conversant, of course, with his books first of all, but then he also mentioned they should be knowledgeable in the Mahabharata, of course, Srimad Bhagavatam, but also the scriptures, like Vedanta Sutra especially, Ramayana. And he's also writing that anyone who dares to sit on the Vyasasan, he should be conversant. Also with the 6 philosophers and their philosophies. So that means, of course, we cannot study all the books, but the essence we should try to understand, and the proper guidance. So, So the six philosophers are six philosophers. At least one or no, you know, one or two.
Patanjali is there.
Patanjali, yeah.
And Jaimini?
What?
Jaimini?
Jaimini also, yes. Yeah. So Patanjali, what he is presenting, what philosophy? Okay.
Name and
Yeah, Patanjali, so he has given the yoga, Patanjali yoga. So the process of Ashtanga yoga in order to advance in spiritual life. And Jaimini, so he has given Karma Mimamsa. So based on the Vedic literatures, so following Karma Kanda, so in order to be well situated in this world, and so Vaisheshika, now that is a philosophy.
philosophy.
Yeah, philosophy. So that is by Kannada. It's a philosopher. So he presented Vaisheshika philosophy. So that is the analytical study of this material existence, the different elements of this world. So, and then other one is also there, Gautam, and he has presented Nyaya. So that is logic, and that is also this, in regards to analytical study of this world and the scriptures, Nyaya. Logic, or maybe also law. Nyaya Vibhag nowadays. And so yoga has been presented by Patanjali Ashtanga Yoga, but then also Kapil Dev, incarnation of the Lord. So he has given, actually Bhakti Yoga. But also it is explained as Sankhya Yoga, also some analytical study of this material world. So yoga, two are regards to yoga, two are regards to Vaisheshika philosophy or analytical study. And then two are regards to the knowledge of the Vedic literatures, which is most profound and most elevated. So one of them is named as Jaimini, and the other one is Vedavyas, who has presented the Veda in written form, dividing it into four. Therefore is known as Vedavyas. So, and then he has presented the essence of the Vedic literatures, Vedanta Sutra. And the Vedas, so he divided in four and entrusted to his disciples, followers, Vaishapayam, Sumanta Paila, and again Jaimini is mentioned. So devotees should be knowledgeable. That is important. He should be Shastraved. He should know the essence of the Vedic literatures, the Vedanta Sutra, the Sandarbhas, Satsandarbhas, by Sujiva Goswami. And so Prabhupada mentioned that the devotees should know the books of the previous acharyas, like is mentioned in one letter about Sanatana Goswami's. We have Bhagavatamrita, and is mentioning that book. So the devotees should try to read, and he's saying anyone who wants to know about Bhagavan, Bhakta, and Bhakti must read this book, Priya Bhagavatamrita. So the true followers of Prabhupada, so they have understood and they are studying it. First of all, Prabhupada's books, but then also the books of the previous acharyas. What's there in Satsandharma? So it is in 6 parts, and it is to prove that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of all incarnations, and is the source of all the spiritual material worlds. So it's quoting actually from the Vedic literatures, Bhagavatam itself also. Ete samsa karapam sam Krishnastu Bhagavan Sayam. Indriyarvyak lokam vidente yuge yuge. So he's explaining there. Quoting from Bhagavatam. Paribhasa Sutra, important verse, which one should remember throughout the reading of the Bhagavatam, because many personalities of Goddess have been explained, have been mentioned, and their activities in this world, their giving of knowledge. But then he's explaining that Krishna is the source of all of them. And therefore, so Vyasadeva is also respected, and so the Vaishnavas, so they are studying the books of the acharyas, the intelligent Vaishnavas, the different books of the acharyas, and then we may have the proper understanding. Everything is there in Prabhupada's books, in essence, but then you may get some more detailed information which may be helpful. So, as mentioned before, so we cannot know all the scriptures, but we should know the essential ones, and Prabhupada, so he presented the essential books, and he gave also explanations for our understanding. So, but first we read Prabhupada's books, and then we may also study other books, or hear from those who have studied Prabhupada's books and understood, and who have studied the previous acharyas' books and who have understood. So we hear from them. So what is you saying? The point? What is there in Satsandharma? Yeah. So etecham sakalapum sam. So showing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So 6 sandarbhas are there. Tattva sandarbha. And so it is based also on the Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically because that is the essence of the Vedic literatures. So presented also by Vyasadeva. So there he has also established, so quoting not only from Bhagavatam but also from other literatures, establishing that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana, the most important of the Vedic literatures. And so devotees should, at least the leaders or the sannyasis, the spiritual masters, they should be conversant with these books. They should be Shastravit, know the essential scriptures. So that means the books of the Acharyas, the followers of Mahaprabhu. But then they should be also understanding Vedanta, Vedantavit. What is the Siddhanta, the conclusion of the scriptures? And Rasa Tattvavit. So they should know about the essential books by which one may advance and attain perfection in our line. So Tattva Sandarbha is there, showing that the Srimad Bhagavatam is spotless Purana and to be accepted as the absolute truth, the essence of the Vedic literatures. And then he's explaining about, so also quoting from Bhagavatam, Vedanta Tattvida Tattvas Tattvam Yajkanam Abhidvayam Prameti Paramatmaiti Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. So the absolute truth, non-dual absolute truth, it is beyond this material world of duality. So the great sages so I've studied the Vedic literatures, Vadanti Tat Tattvavidas. So they've understood, and they have understood that this absolute truth is divided in three. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. So the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth, and then the localized aspect, the super soul, Paramatma, and then Bhagavan. So Bhagavatam has explained this, and so there he has explained about these three aspects of the absolute truth. The impersonal aspect, Brahmajyoti, and he has quoted, so then again, not only from Bhagavatam but other literatures. And so they are respected, the Brahmavadis, or those who worship the impersonal aspect. They're also known as Mahatma, great souls, but their understanding is not complete. And so then from scripture he has proven that the highest conception of the absolute truth is the personal form of the Lord, Bhagavan. And of the many personalities of Godhead, the original is Krishna. Etecham Sakala Pumsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Sayam. But he's explaining, just to make the reader understand, the scholars understand, the three aspects he has explained with many verses. And the Brahmajyoti is the effulgence of Krishna's body. And Krishna is perfect and complete. So the impersonal aspect is the Brahmajyoti, Krishna's effulgence. And the localized aspect, that is an expanded form of the Lord in this material world to guide the conditioned souls. Paramatma is not there in the spiritual world. It's only in the material world accompanying the jivas. In the spiritual world, the devotees are depending on the Lord themselves, on Krishna and Braj, Gopinath, Yashodanandan, Damodar, Arjun Sakha, or so the friend of Arjun. And of course, even Krishna is explaining Braj, Krishna and Mathura, and Krishna and Dwarka. So that is an important book actually. So establishing the Bhagavatam as the supreme literatures, establishing that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, above the Brahmajyoti or the source of the Brahmajyoti, the source of Paramatma. So Tattva Sandarbha and then Paramatma Sandarbha. It's explaining about Paramatma also. And then Bhagavad Sandarbha. It's explaining that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, source of everything. And so that is the beginning, that is Sambandha Gyan. So we have to know, we are spirit soul, we know this body. And Krishna is there and that we are meant to serve. So Tattva, Paramatma, Bhagavad Sandarbha, and then Krishna Sandarbha. So explaining more about Krishna. And then quoting from Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures. Confirming that Krishna in Braj, not Krishna in Mathura and Dwarka, is the supreme, absolute truth. And then after that, so he's explaining about Abhideya Gyan, that is the process of devotional service. So we have to perform devotional service, and then we can realize the subject matter. And so Bhakti Sandarbha is there about devotional service and the different stages of devotional service. And the beginning stage and then a more advanced stage. The need of acceptance of a spiritual master or a guide. So becoming free from anarthas, becoming fixed. So, in the spiritual understanding, in the absolute truth and the philosophy. So quoting many verses. And then at the end, so the prayojan, the necessity, that is prayojan tattva, that is service or relationship or exchange with Krishna when one is highly advanced on the spiritual platform. And then one may attain perfection by performing devotional service, pure devotional service one has to perform. So that is there in Priti Sandarbha, just in brief. But it's nicely explained and quoting so many verses. So he was a great scholar. So it is very philosophical, so not many can read it. But I read it one time. So it's interesting. So a great contribution. But then he presented Gopal Champu also about Krishna's pastimes. In two parts. The first part is about Krishna's pastimes in Braj, and the second part is about Krishna's pastimes in Mathura and Dwarka. So we prefer the first part. I read the first part and then I could not read the second part. But then after some time I read it also. So because, yes, we should, like the Bhagavatam. So most interesting is the 10th canto, but we have to read from the 1st to the 9th. And then we read the 10th canto. And there also about Krishna in Braj, Krishna in Mathura, and Krishna in Dwarka. But then we don't stop here, but we read the Bhagavatam, the 11th canto and the 12th canto, which is also giving a lot of information. So these transcendental literatures are there actually to be studied. So the Goswamis didn't write the literatures for themselves or for their friends, who are all great souls who don't need to study because they're already pure devotees. But they wrote these books for us. So, but of course, slowly but surely, we have to see that we become qualified. And so, so first we read what Prabhupada has presented, and then we may read other books also as Prabhupada has explained. Okay, Hare Krishna. हो गया